Okay, so good evening, class. So, welcome to week 8 of the problem solving session of the joy of programming, introduction to Python, right? So, a couple of things once again. Like today's class will be focusing more on slightly simpler problems. I hope they are simpler. And if you want harder questions, you can look at the questions written directly above me, and those should be those should require more thought than the ones I'm going to solve right now. And if you have any suggestions how I can improve my teaching and things like that, please feel free to scan the QR and give your opinions. So we'll first start with this question. Does anyone have an idea how to solve this? I think it should be easy. Okay, so naturally the most because it's strictly asking for a function, we'll first write the function stuff. We'll call this bubbles, and its input is a string, and we want to return the vowels from this string s. Let's say s is the string, so we want the vowels of s. There are a few ways to do this. The more, what's that thing called, verbose way would be to make a list outright. We'll say a is equal to list, and then we go letter by letter in using s. So for letter in s, now we have to check if the letter is a vowel or not. If it is a vowel, we'll put it inside a, otherwise we'll just let it be. So how do we check if something is a vowel? The easiest way, in my opinion, is if letter in so letter is, well, any letter inside the string, and you are checking if that letter is among these. So essentially I'm showcasing mainly the in operator, which will check if something is inside something else. So if the letter is inside, we add that to the thing. Letter else just continues, and finally we return a. We can check this by print and we get OEEE, which is the expected result, right? Now some things you would have noticed is, we know that Python does have types, in the sense we know there are integers are a thing, floats are a thing, and strings are a thing, and so on. And like right now, Python here knows that a is a list, and because of that, if I do a dot, it tells me all of the, what's that thing called, list methods, which is like incredibly useful, right? And likewise, if I had done b is equal to a dictionary, now b is a dictionary, if I do b dot, it tells me all the dictionary methods. So the environment you're using is always there to help you write the code, but sometimes it doesn't know enough to help you write the code as much as it wants to. For example, right now, if I write s dot, nothing happens because it does not know that s is a string. Now, like as you see, if you look here, VS Code is telling me S can be anything. And if S is anything, then why should it can't just tell every method, right? So from I think Python 3.8, there is a method, there is a way we can tell Python that this is a string, and that is by putting a colon and then writing string after that. Now Python knows that S is a string. If I hover over it, it will tell me S is a string. And if I do S dot, it will give me all the string methods, which is very useful. So because it has all the string methods, it knows letter is also a string. And because letter is a string, we can write letter dot and have all the things like that also. So but there's you guys don't need to know this, but it's just very convenient when you're writing code. Okay, like, yeah, so that's, for example, if you hover over vowels, it tells you that the input is a string and it returns a list, which is exactly what it does. It's smart enough to figure that out from the code. So if I had done temp is equal to vowels, if I do temp dot, it knows the, what's that thing called, the list methods. So essentially my point here is you can add things like this in your code to make Python know what you're doing, and that will help things a little. Anyways, so let's go to the next question. The next question is hopefully a lot more fun. Okay, so for the people who have come new, if you're bored with the questions I'm doing right now, you can always do the questions that are like written directly above me. And if you have any suggestions on how I can improve, you can like scan the QR code, and yeah. So does anyone have any idea how to solve question 2? Like, just to get input from you all. I am audible, right? Oh god. Yeah, sure, I am audible. Okay, thank goodness. Okay, so does anyone have an, oh, I forgot to mention, if you have any questions regarding last week's lectures, feel free to ask. I can help in those also. And in case it feels I'm not looking at the camera, it's because I have two monitors. So I can put this here. Yeah. So does anyone have any idea how to solve this? The second question. Okay, so once again we have a function and the input is a string. So we'll start like the previous one. Def big Now, big in Big Latin, we have to split the things with respect to each of the words, right? Let's for convenience sake, let's say the input is always going to, like let the output always be in lowercase, and there's no fancy characters, okay, like no exclamation marks and things like that. So because we need to look at everything word by word, we need to use the split function, and that will essentially split any string into several things with broken up in places. Let's look at it. Print s dot split. Big Latin of hello there, I like chocolate. So that's what split does. So now we have a list of strings, and we can iterate over them. So for word in s dot split, we have to look at the first letter of word and check whether that is a vowel or not. If the word is a vowel, I just have to add yay at the end. So okay, we can use a thing, we can kind of use a thing logic we use for the first question, how to check if something's a vowel or not. So if word of 0, that's the first letter of the word, in a e I o u, but we have something to return, so we'll initialize that also. So ret is translated is equal to, initially nothing, we will start with nothing and then we'll fill it with words one by one. So we'll add the word to it. Translated is equal to translated plus word plus yay space. Otherwise the first letter of word is a consonant. If the first letter of word is a consonant, you must first take all the consonants in the beginning and put them towards the end. So the easiest way to do this is to use a while loop. So we'll start with k is equal to 0 while, okay, now I again need to check if something is a vowel. So instead of doing this here, instead of doing it like this, I will define a function to check for a vowel. To start, we don't need to add the triple quotes. Where do you want me to add the triple quotes? Oh, you mean double quotes? Could you ask give more information about your question, Musa? Which beginning? Here? Oh, here. This line. Translated is equal to this thing. Here I'm put the double quotes is just to indicate that the double quotes is just to indicate it's an empty string, because technically, oh, how do I do it? Yeah, temp is equal to this. print type temp. See, it will tell us that this is just an empty string. It's a string. Clearly, this is a string, and because we can evidently see there's nothing inside this string, so we'll call it an empty string. Okay, glad I could. I'm glad you could find that explanation. Okay, so as I was saying, we need to take a. We'll make a function to check if something's a vowel or not. So we can just copy this. Return S in A-E-I-O-U. And we can replace this with is vowel. So likewise here, not. Here we want to make sure it's still a word of k is equal to k plus 1. I'll write something. This might not look obvious immediately, but when it will eventually make sense. Okay, so oh god, forgot to add this. Okay, s dot okay, so yeah, it works. Yeah, so essentially what this does is, okay, I'll look at the second part of it first. What this says is I should take every consonant in the beginning of the word and shift it towards the end. That means I need to know how many consonants there are in the beginning, and I'm using this while loop to find that out. So if is vowel is false, that means I'm at a consonant, right? So as long as is vowel is false, I'll keep incrementing k. That means as long as I'm at a consonant, the value of k keeps increasing. Once the value of the moment is vowel is, once I've reached the vowel, it will stop. It will also stop if k is greater than the length of the word. Obviously, we can't look at something, if the entire word is just full of consonants, we can't do anything about it. So we have to stop there. So there are two cases in which this should stop: when I reach a vowel or I reach the end of the word. Then I shuffle the words around. If I have to shift the consonants towards the end, I can do this. What does this do? This takes the last part of the word. This takes the first part of the word. So what I'm doing here is taking the first part of the word and putting it at the end. And then I'm adding ay because that is what pig Latin is. So that's how this program works. Do you want me to explain it again? I guess not. So I'll continue to the next question. Okay. Oh, you want me to explain it again? Okay, fine. So I suppose the vowel part of this is reasonable. The vowel, if the word starts with a vowel, all I have to do is add yay at the end. That's what this is doing. So since this word starts with a vowel, I just have to add yay. Super easy. So if the word starts with consonants, then there are two, I mean, it's not really two cases. It can be like consider the Pokemon name Infernape. Oh, Infernape starts, okay, assume it started with a Y instead. So what they are saying is, if the word starts with multiple consonants, I need to shift all those consonants towards the end. So I should take Y and F and put it towards the end. So take Y and F, Control X, and put it towards the end. But for that, I need to know where the first vowel is after that. So I use this while loop to find the first vowel. What happens is, I first start with the first letter. The first letter is a consonant. So I'll go to the next letter. That's also a consonant. Then I go to the next letter. That's also a consonant. Then I reach the next letter, which is an E. And that is not a consonant. So I stop there. So now K will be 3 or 4. It will be 3. So we have K is equal to 3. When I do word of, this is the slicing operator. I'm pretty sure it was taken in one of the classes before. So say I have a string. Hello there. Tired of hello there. I'll say something more fancy. My computer has a really heavy GPU. Heavy GPU. Okay. So if I print temp of, what this will do is, it will take the first 5 elements. MY space CO. That's 5 elements. So this is how you slice any iterator. Essentially, it goes like start to end, except that this if you don't specify a start, it's implied it's the beginning, and if you don't specify an end, it's implied it's the end of the word. So if I do this, it means it's from the beginning of the word to the end of the word. You can see that my computer, it puts the entire thing. If I put 10 here, it will start from the beginning and take 10 letters. If I put a 10 here, it will start from the 10th letter and then go towards the end. So that is what slicing is. That's so that is what's happening here. Oh no, I am slicing the end, slicing the beginning, putting it at the end, and just rearranging it, and then I'm adding AY. So that is how the Pig Latin, that's most of the code in Pig Latin. I hope that made sense. I am getting thumbs up. That's good. So I don't need this. Okay. So now we'll move to the next question. So this question is not too difficult, I hope. We have to use a library which was seen in the third week of class, I think. Yes, that's right, Karthik. We have to use the datetime library. So let's do that. Import date. So earlier I had put the types of the thing in the beginning, but eventually you will learn how to make more complicated types. Like for example, some 3D, what's that thing called? 3D rendering stuff will have vectors in 3D and vectors in 2D, which are different types, which are constructed using some specific terminologies. You will learn that eventually. There's no way you're going to have a Python class without ever, sorry, a Python online lecture series without talking about classes. So similarly, the datetime library also has a bunch of classes. For example, datetime is in fact a class itself. But we'll worry about that later. Anyway, let's look at the before. Oh, like if you open the documentation, there's a lot of scary looking stuff, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Just wait for it. So the important things are, there was a table around here. Essentially, there are these three classes. There's something called time delta, which represents a duration. Ignore the top part. I'm looking for the other stuff. Then there's the date, which represents a date, and there is a date time, which represents a date time, which represents a date and a time. The important thing was, where is it written? Yeah. So it makes sense. Remember, time delta is a duration. Date time is, well, a date and a time. It makes sense for us to calculate a new date time by adding a date time and a duration. Like right now it's 6:30 on 19 September. If I add 1 hour to that, I get 7:30 on 19 September, which is a very logical thing to do. We can get one date time if I have a date time and a duration. Similarly, if I can subtract a duration from a date time, that's also logical. Important thing is, if I have two date times, I can subtract them to get a duration, which makes sense again. If I know, and this is what we are going to use. So that is why I kind of wanted to include the talk about classes. So this function should take two date times. So we'll just call the function def time of sleep, duration of sleep, sorry. Sleep time, and its type is and wake up time, which is also a date time dot date time. Now, the reason I wanted to use classes, sorry, I am not using classes, I wanted to use this syntax is because now I have the autocomplete. It's so convenient with autocomplete, right? So we know that duration is the difference of these. So all I have to do is wake up time minus sleep time. If you look here, it Python knows this is a duration. It has written duration is a time delta, which is what we saw in the documentation, a duration, and we have to return this. There's only one small issue. It's a little difficult to write a date time. We have to use a little bit of weird syntax and all. So let's say let's look at the documentation to see how to generate a date time. I guess I can just make this bigger. That's the only nice way to show this. Essentially, this looks ugly. I can't do anything about it. So essentially, if you input a date time from a format which looks like this essentially says 2011 November 4th. Yeah, November 4th, 5:23, and is this 5:23? Yeah, but so if we input the date time in this format, we can get so we can use this notation, I guess. Yeah, but that's a slightly different question. We'll ignore that. So this works. Similarly, using date time, you can easily do the fourth question. I I will solve this if we have extra time at the end of the class. So let's do this now. Actually, this will be make a I hope you're aware of the Python library for plotting. Yes, that's the one. So we'll start off with that. Oh, yes, second. Why won't you just give me the local maps? So now I just have lots of generic text. So how would you guys do the first part? I hope this part made sense. Right now I'm just reading the file and storing it in a variable. If I run this, it prints it, and most of the thing is here. Yeah. So to get the number of bubbles, the easiest way would be to use is a count. Oh, it's not a thing. Okay. So there exists a function in Python called filter. Filter is essentially, as the name suggests, it's a filter. So when you put text inside the filter, it will only extract the text which is a bubble. So that's, and as you see, it just prints it out. So the number of bubbles is the length of this thing. And num bubble. Yeah, you have to convert it to a list because Python tries to optimize things, and because of that, when I do filter here, it does not actually calculate it until I put the list. So we can actually do this in one line. Control C. So did this part make sense? I know the filter function is new, but I feel it's kind of intuitive. What the filter function takes is a function and some text, and what happens is every element of the text is put into this function. After it's put inside the function, it is only extracted out if this function gives a true. Remember, is bubble just checks if it's a bubble or not. So the only things that is filtered, the only thing that's comes out from the filter will be the bubble. We can make a def is consonant, which takes a string again. And I need consonant also. Okay, so essentially I forgot one more thing. There's number of other characters. So unfortunately I can't do consonant like this. Turn S in. Okay. Yeah. So this is how we check. I'm checking if it's a consonant, and we already made the function to check for vowel earlier. So likewise, we'll just, and anything else def is anything else s. In case I forget, consonant is spelled with an A, and I keep making this mistake. I guess that's not an issue. So and now comes the part which I always Google. Oh, I don't need a histogram. I'm sorry. Wait. Uh. It's a bar graph. Yeah. All I have to do is input the values like that. So bubble. And there you go. So the weird text we have, we get the plots like this. I hope this made sense. The biggest takeaway for this part of the code is essentially the filter function, which might be useful. Like, it's good to know that it exists. Just like the filter function, there are things like map and I forgot the other one but yeah, there are some useful functions out there which are nice to have in your repository. I hope this part made sense. I hope that was not too difficult. So once again, if the questions are, if you feel like my questions are too difficult, please do tell me. I will try to do the easier questions. But in case you feel my questions are too easy, feel free to do the questions above, and I feel those are an appropriate level of difficulty for if you want to challenge yourself. And once again, if you want to give any feedback on how I can improve, please feel free to scan that QR code and fill the Google form. Pretty sure the Google form is still active, but let's see. Now, similar to how I've done this, we can do the next part also. Can we? So we still have txt, and now, okay, for the sake of, if any of you have a solution, we can, this is a slightly more difficult question, so if you want, you can try out yourself. Meanwhile, I will solve the next question. So I feel like this is a really fun question for you to try. So let's just, yeah. So do you guys have an idea how to solve this? What do you think the input is? Another chocolate. So do you have any solution? So naturally, if you have a shopping list is always the item and the count of the item, right? So that is essentially a dictionary. So we have a dictionary here. Oh. I hope this part was not too scary. This makes sense, right? Essentially, all I've done, I wanted to give a type for the dictionary. The reason I'm doing it like this is because now, as I said before, I'll have a much better autocorrect. So if I take a of hello, Python now knows that this is an integer. So I have all the things which are yeah, Python knows this is an integer. So I'll have all the things an integer will have. I can also do for value in A, and Python knows that value is now a string because the key of the dictionary is a string. Essentially, if you give type hints to Python, Python will just make your life slightly easier. Dictionaries are represented by curly braces. That is correct. As in, A is equal to hello and the value, I'll give it 5. So this is a dictionary, right? This is not a dictionary. This is the type of the dictionary. In the sense, Python has a function. Where did it go? Okay, there's a function in Python. Every variable in Python has a type. If I take the type of 12, it will say integer. It's an int. If I take the type of hello, it will tell me it's a string. If I take the type of true, it will tell me it's a boolean. Likewise, if I take the type of a list, I put an extra. If I put it will tell me it's a list. Just take this guy and put him in. It tells me it's a dict. The thing is, Python did not let us write the small dict here before. Earlier, I could put str for all other things. I put str and things like that to show it's a string. But Python only gave proper typing hints in 3.8, if I remember correctly. Yeah, the support for type hints came from Python 3.8, and because of that, it was not inside the function before that, inside default Python before that. So if I want to say A is a dictionary, that is, I'm specifying that A is the type of A is dictionary, then I have to do it in this format. Just like here, I have said the type of S is a string. So I did it like this. I didn't. Here I said the type of sleep time is date time. So I did it like this. But dictionary is a compound type essentially. Right? So I had to represent it like this. This is not a dictionary. This is the type of a dictionary. Just like string is a type, integer is a type, float is a type, and so on. This is the type of a dictionary. Okay. So once again, I'm like, the types in Python are purely to make things easier for us to code. Python does not care that I've said this, unlike other languages. Like in C++, you have to define the types. In many other programming languages, you have to define the types. But Python is essentially like, yeah, cool, bro, this is a dictionary, I'll believe you. all Python does, because it has come so late, is the reason it's come so late is because Python doesn't need it in background. This is just for things for autocomplete, things like autocomplete to help us code. So right now, because Python knows this is a dictionary from string to integer, if I say for value in A, it knows that value is a string. So if I write value dot, sorry, if I write value dot, it has all the string autocomplete stuff, which is like very convenient in certain cases. I have to put this up. Give me a second. Okay. So let's say we are going to a very weird shop with only these 4 items. So I will iterate through the dictionary and I'll go to the dictionary and see what I have to buy. So the first thing I'm going to item in dictionary. I first have to check if the shop has the item. So if item in costs, if it is in cost, I can get the cost of the item. So cost per 1 is equal to and I know I have a of item number of that thing. So to get the cost, total cost I have to pay. It's just the product of these two. So cost so far else item I might have done this part very fast, but I hope the steps made sense. So let's try. Print shopping list calculate. I need bread, 20 loaves of bread. Chocolate, a lot of chocolate, 100 chocolates. I also want bubble gum because someone asked me to get it, and that's it. Oh, I forgot to put this. So now when I run this, it will tell me that yeah, I can't buy bubble gum because it's not in the shop, and the total cost otherwise is 1400. I hope this part made sense. Okay, then we'll move on to the next question. So this should be very it'll be easy for you guys. Let's see. Okay, it's simple but not necessarily easy. Yeah. Can I get someone solution? once again, like just as the prof also keeps saying, the only way to get better at programming is to code it yourself. So just listening to me code right now won't really help unless you're like working together and things like that. So has anyone any idea how to do question 7? Is it too difficult? Oh. If I remember correctly, in one of the first few classes, we have come across this function called ASCII. So did this code make sense? Oh god. Oh, it's not ASCII, it's odd. Oops. Yeah. Oh, huh. Need to subtract. 8. Oh, the letter L is the 12th letter. Oh, that's a little humiliating. Okay. Anyways, okay. I hope this code made sense. So, can you think of a way to make this code even smaller? So, one way is we can use this my odd function we've created, and we can make a list of this. So, now that I have a list of the thing, I just have to take the sum of it. And it gives us the same result. Another, because this notation is very common, we because this notation is very common, the idea of using this is what is captured by the idea of using a map. A map essentially does what I just did here. Essentially, a map takes a function and something I can iterate, and then one by one put stuff into it. So what I've done here is the same thing what a map does. But maps are slight. It gets time to properly get used to maps. So unless you're programming there yourself, you might not really get it. Okay, so we'll go to the next question. Oh, this is a fun question. I hope the question made sense. For this question is essentially saying, say we have a list of tuples. Lists are separated by parentheses, brackets. This is a tuple. So this is a list of tuples. And I need to convert this into a tuple of lists. I hope the question makes sense. So how would you approach this question? Okay, so once again, like if there are any questions regarding last week's of lectures, feel free to ask. I kind of only made 10 questions for today. I thought that would last, but apparently not. Okay, so if you have questions, I'll always try to try answering them. But maybe this question will take a long time, so maybe there's hope. So, uh, the name of the function right now is really weird, but essentially I mean list of strings, sorry, list of tuples to tuples of lists. So so and if you remember correctly, the definition of a tuple is that it cannot be changed. So once I have a tuple, I can't add things to it. So if I have tuple 1 comma 4 comma 5, I can I can only count and check the index. That's it. I cannot add things to this tuple. In fact, I don't think I can even like use the addition operator. So 1 comma 3 plus 3. Yeah, you cannot add things to a tuple. So I'll do something slightly hacky. I'll start with a list and then I'll convert it to a tuple at the end. So ret dot append k. Not a k. So now ret is a list of lists. And I'll just do a is equal to tuple of ret. Return a. Oh, I shouldn't use a. So let's try. Okay, we'll just try this now. Oh god. Did I make a typo? What's the issue? I will answer this question later. I code should have worked. Anyways, let's look at the next question. So this question requires recursion. I I'm pretty sure it requires recursion. So do you have any ideas how to solve this? I hope the question 9 made sense. If I remember correctly, this week's lecture, one of them involved anagrams also. So oh god, this is a yeah, okay, anyway, I fixed the error. So as you just saw, you should never name one of your variables as some default functions in the code, because if you name it as a default function, your Python will get confused on what to call, and that's why that error came. So I gave this a list of tuples, and the output is a tuple of lists. I hope that made sense. The error was I had defined this as tuple earlier, and that confused Python. Because if this is tuple and this is also tuple, which tuple should it be? So yeah, that's another reason why you should not name lists as list and dictionaries as dict also, because the same issue. Anyways, did this question make sense? I mean, did the solution to this question make sense? Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. I do not know the kind of questions that will appear in the final exam, but I'm phrasing my questions to be just slightly more difficult than the programming assignments given in Swime portal. Like last week, this one of this week's question involves taking three, identifying the three vowels and replacing it with an underscore and things like that. I felt that's a nice question, and I feel like this question is definitely of that difficulty. So, like, this question is not a difficult question. It just requires knowledge after application. So I feel the difficulty of my questions will be appropriate to the final exam. At the same time, I'm not certain the final exam will have questions like this. We are not told about the question paper pattern and things like that. So, do we have any answers for question number 9? Like, if you want to steer my direction of explaining and teaching a different way, please do what's that thing called? Scan the QR code. I promise it just takes you to a Google form and nothing else, and just fill it. And like, if necessary, I think I can make questions simpler than this, I guess. Like one of the reviews I had gotten was I make too difficult questions, and I want to know if everyone is feeling that, or if it's just like that class. Okay, so for this question, the reason I said that this requires recursion is if you think about the number of solutions. So if I start with, if I have take the word quack, the number of possibilities, number of anagrams is 120. There is A, C, K, Q, U, A, C, K, U, Q, A, C, Q, U, C, Q, U, K, and so on. Just like by keeping A in the first place itself, we will have I think 24 combinations. So, so the number of number of solutions is growing in a factorial sense. That's why that's the intuition why I think this would have required recursion. So let's look at it. So the idea is I'll as I so the idea is I first select a letter to be the first letter of the thing, and I'll keep arranging the other letters. So after I select A, After I select A, I am left with C, K, Q, and U. And I must find all possible anagrams of this. For that, I must first take this C, Q, U and find all possible anagrams of this. So this is definitely a recursive question. So I will def anagram. I start with a string. The thing is, at every step, I must print an entire string. So I will have a couple. So when I'm finding the anagram of K, Q, and U, I should still know that I have A and C in front. So I'll call that remaining, and that's also a string. Then I need to choose each letter of S. Okay, no, because it's a recursive problem, we have to consider the base case, the case when the recursion stops. The recursion will stop when S is empty, when there's no letters left in S, or maybe when there's one letter left in S. So if len of S is equal to 1, print rem plus S. Else, and I can return here. Otherwise, I must look at the letters in S. For letter in S, I will have to call this function again, but S should not have that letter and rem should have that letter. Okay. Yeah. So that is the function. So if I do anagram of hello ice, we have all the anagrams of ice. If I want the anagram of QWERTY, I'll get all the anagrams of QWERTY. I hope the reasoning why this is a recursive problem made sense. And so that's the solution. I'll upload this in the GitHub anyways. So if you want to look at the code, please feel free to look at the code and make all changes and study it. So well, that took less time than I expected. Okay. Okay, so can you try this? One hint is you will need input OS. If you do, remember, if you're not sure about what a thing has, it's always nice to look at documentation. OS in Python. There will be a lot of extra things, but yeah. Oh, it's not OS. You need, yeah. Yeah, okay. The name of the function is listdiff. Yeah. So right now I'm running the code from this folder. So the only things inside this folder are these. So if I had made a folder inside called quack, if I run this again, it has quack also. But the difference is, because quack is, I want all the files and folders in the dictionary. Sorry, in the directory. So I need to open quack and then look at the files inside that now. So how would you do this? Note that knowing file manipulation in Python is kind of important, because many of the things you'll need to do will be with files themselves. So it's kind of useful to have knowledge about these commands. Okay, so So did the basic logic here make sense? So what I'm doing is I'll go through all the files and folders inside that dictionary. Now the thing is, according to the documentation, if I give this a path here, then I can os.list there will tell the things inside that path. So we need to make another recursive function. Def, we'll call it traverse. I hope this works. Hopefully this works. Okay, there you go. Oh, so there's a small edge case I hadn't considered. A folder can be empty, and if a folder is empty, then it won't go in this loop. So I just have to consider that case also. If len os dot list dir, there you go. So if I add files into Quack, temp.txt, temporary, and I go back into more questions. If I run this, that file is also there. If I go and make a new folder inside Quack, Quack2, new file, Word. Now if I run this, it will traverse the entire path and get that. I hope this solution made sense. Why this has to be a recursive problem? The fact that this is a recursive problem makes more sense, right? Because if the input is a folder, there are folders inside a folder. So there we have to do a smaller version of the same problem, and that is where we have to use recursion, when we have to do the same thing but to a smaller subset. So once again, when there's recursion, there are two things you must do. You must consider the base case, that is when the recursion must stop. In this case, the recursion stops when you have reached the file. If you have reached a folder instead, you should go one step further into the recursion, where you call the new path again, when you call the same thing again, but with a slightly different parameter. I hope this code makes sense. The main reason this code looks a lot different is because we have to use a lot of functions from OS, because we have to do os.path.join so that the paths are joined correctly. This is mainly because Windows and Mac have slightly different conventions, and because of things like that, we have to make solutions like this. So if I had I cannot have you see all the files in my program on my computer though. Okay. So did this? I hope I hope this kind of made sense. Okay. So I guess I have no choice but to answer this question. So we had skipped a part of this question earlier, which involves the combinations with two consecutive version things. So for this, I will first take text and change it slightly. So I'll call this text 2, and text 2 will start as an empty list, and I will fill it with all doubles. So as I write the code, it will make more sense. So what I'm doing, I'm starting with txt2 as an empty list, and I'm putting all doubles pairs inside txt inside this. Oops. Yeah. I should. Okay. Now I have this. I will modify my def is so just like this. I hope this function made sense. Like essentially, I'm just doing the things I've done in the previous thing. And ta-da! Oh god, it's txt2. So apparently double vowels are not as common as I expected them, and a consonant followed by a vowel happens almost just as often as a vowel followed by a consonant, and there are significantly more double consonants than double vowels. I guess that makes sense because consonant itself has like two double vowels or two double consonants and things like that. Anyways, so that kind of concludes today's class. Unless you want me to solve one of the questions in the extra questions, but that's I I'll only do it if people ask me to. They are harder questions for a reason. So in the end, if you want more questions, feel free to ask. Yeah, we can wind down the class now. So if you have any questions, please ask now. Yeah. Why guess there's no question? Like for the sake of YouTube video, I'll have to keep going till 8 o'clock. So if you want to leave, you can leave. After 8 o'clock, I will stop the recording. And if you have any I'll stay around for like 2 minutes after that. If you have any questions you don't want to appear on YouTube, you can ask me then. Oh, so maybe I should have mentioned this, but I guess it is clear why this only works if the word does not have repeated letters, right? So if I have hello instead, many of the things will be repeated. You see, this one has come here again because of the two L's. It will like repeat most of these things twice. So the way to avoid that is you have to think a little. Had also made such cool keyboard shortcuts to cancel these, but I didn't have to use them. Okay, so that will conclude the class. So the YouTube audience, I'm saying a goodbye now.